You're my assistant, okay? You're supposed to back me up and go get me juice boxes when I tell you. Now go get me a juice box.
You know who you're talking to?
I'm talking to the juice box guy.
You're crazy.
I'm not crazy. I'm just thirsty.
Why don't you go to hell?
No, you go to hell. While you're there, why don't you grab me a juice box?
I'm no juice box boy, I'll tell you that.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
All right, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. I am your host, Gus Manti. Thank you to all the new listeners that we got this past week. Really appreciate that. A lot of new listens on that PMTT recap podcast from last week. Max and I are still buzzing pretty good after that. Also would like to give a shout out to Hyde Music for the sound quality of the past 2 weeks. My aunt and uncle, Todd and Dee Dee Hyde, the owners of Hyde Music, which they have multiple locations throughout Wisconsin. I believe it's Appleton, Green Bay, Stevens Point, Oshkosh, and Madison. They hooked me up, Max as well, and Brian shortly on getting some studio quality mics finally. I know that was something that some of the users were asking about at the beginning. I know the mic quality probably wasn't super good, but yeah, if anybody out there is a musician or in need of some good quality, sound equipment, I'd definitely suggest Hyde Music, and also all musical instrument needs. So everyone go check that out if you could. That'd be awesome. We're gonna have a little Q&A today, and hopefully we can get to all the questions. And if we do miss any, if you're a listener that has sent a question in and you don't hear it, just please resend it in. I might have missed it. Really appreciate everyone sending in questions. It's awesome. This was a little more of a laid back week. We went pretty hard during the PMTT, and I kind of took a little time off. Didn't fish as much this past week. Still put a couple fish in the bag. Still dialed in a few patterns. Hoping to talk a little bit about that for you guys, to give you a little recap. Kind of what's to be expected this weekend going into the PMCC for Max and Brian. Ooh. And before I get any further, I might as well introduce the other Muskies on Tap members here, and that is Max Manti.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be here. I'm glad we're also joined by our other co-host, Brian. A little worried about him, though. I don't know if he got in too much golf this weekend, and on top of that, his dream boy, Rory McIlroy, came up short once again in the U.S. Open tonight. So really excited to get his thoughts on all that. Excited to chat with him, too. Haven't seen him. And that's Partsy right there. We're getting ready to go for the PMCC, so should be a fun week, down up some ideas, maybe talk a little strategy. So I'm sure we'll be communicating quite frequently here over the next few days, but good to be with everyone. Like Gus said, pretty drained after the PMTT last week. So, I was able to get up north this weekend for Father's Day. It was also Gus's birthday, so did some celebrating. But yeah, like Gus said, putting a few fish in the bag. So that was a good time. But yeah, let's kick it over to you, Brian. I want to hear how you're feeling tonight.
I'm feeling all right tonight. A little disappointed after watching the U.S. Open final round. Rory played some incredible golf this week, and unfortunately couldn't get a couple big putts to drop coming down the stretch. Kind of getting used to that from him, but on to Hoylake, it's going to be a massacre, and same goes for the PMCC this weekend. That beatdown's coming, boys. Watch out.
I absolutely love the confidence.
You guys are going to kill it. It's going to be fun talking strategy here tonight.
So let's just start right there, Brian. What are we thinking here for the PMCC? It's Saturday morning. Let's set the stage. We're rocking the 16-foot family boat this weekend. Gus has got a few guide trips. That's why him and I aren't doing it. So I tagged up with the incredible Brian Eckel here for the PMCC. So yeah, so we're running the 16-foot Ranger. It's got a 40 horsepower on it. Lucky enough for us, or maybe unlucky enough for us, we got drawn boat number 1 for the start Saturday morning. So if we do decide to head north or south off the takeoff lake, which is Eagle, I think by the time we hit, I don't know, the channel from Voyager into Catfish, I'm guessing boat 45 will probably be passing us. So I think that's got to be baked into our strategy a little bit. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. You think we're going to stick around close, or should we make a trek starting off Saturday morning?
It's been a while since I've been in that boat. Maybe Gus, you can remind me quick. What's our top speed there? With us 2 units in the boat, we thinking like 15 miles an hour?
She's pushing about 25.
25? All right, all right.
Oh, maybe 24.
I'm hoping if when we get past going into the channel from Eagle heading towards Voyager, we'll be able to kind of suck into a little slingshot seam behind the boat in front of us and just ride their waves all the way over to immediately. Gonna be putting a hammer down.
We are just talking spots immediately here.
We'll put some bleepers over those, but
a little bit.
But
I love that idea. That's perfect. Textbook right there. That's a fish before 740 if I've ever heard.
Yeah, and then I think our other plan, since we won't have some of the crucial electronics that Gus will be having on his boat, probably just hunker in behind the nicest Ranger on and just peek over at their live scope half the time for this inevitable bug hatch that we'll be dealing with.
Yeah, I know that we sent you some concerning videos. As our listeners know from episode 1, Brian is not a big fan at not casting at any sort of cover or structure, really. Not a big fan of open water fishing. And if this bug hatch continues to what it was this weekend, we're going to be in for a real treat. And I think another thing to kind of touch on, for Brian and I fishing is, so we're like I said, in the Ranger, we have a small trolling motor, which is fine. The spots that we're going to fish, we're familiar with, but the biggest thing is going to be boat control, because I don't know the last time you ran the trolling motor, but for me, it's probably been 2 years. And I don't even know if you've ever run the trolling motor in your entire life, honestly. So we're going to have to figure out who's doing that.
I did when we were really young and just kind of casting for whatever the hell was swimming under the boat. But I haven't done it probably in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. So yeah, I'll probably let you man that for the most part, unless you start veering off into too deep of water. But I think maybe a good game plan without being able to really. I mean, we will be live scopeless, unlike probably 90% of the boats. So I don't know. Hopefully we can get some good work in pre-fishing. I believe we'll be able to use Gus's boat for that and at least kind of mark out some areas. And then hopefully they're fairly adjacent to kind of our A1 spots and our typical spots, and we won't be just guessing the whole time.
Yeah, definitely heard that. Hopefully we won't be guessing the whole time. But yeah, that's going to be a trip, man. I mean, I guess, back when Gus was younger, I was always the one running the trolling motor. And obviously when the guard changed on that, it's quite the luxury to always just be able to fish and not have to worry about where the boat position is and stuff like that, and just make casts and hope for the best. So that's going to be quite the change, I think, for both of us. Could cause some conflict early on in the day on Saturday, if I had to guess.
If it's windy, I mean, we're just gonna be doing donuts in a spot. I don't have too much faith in us battling the wind.
Yeah, no, that's gonna make things really hard.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll definitely be laying back on a Gus and hopefully get some good pre-fishing in on Friday. I'm hoping to get up there at least by midday. We'll see what the bite's going to be. I don't know if it is a bug hatch and the fish are kind of pushed off the weeds, it's going to be, I'm going to guess, more of a rubber bite. I don't know, Gus, I know you had some success on some earlier this week.
Yeah, it's still been good. We've got 3 this past week on 2 for Clayton, my Tuesday night league partner, and 1 for myself. And 2 of those 3 were open water. And then also Max and I were just trolling today. It's Father's Day, my birthday as well. And we went out trolling on the chain and we caught one on it was probably like a 31 incher or so, but it was scoreable. It's important.
Can we please keep that whole segment, but every time you say tube or baby depth raider, just put a boop, boop. And so you're going,
That
you're
would
going,
be funny.
yeah, we did score some on boop. And then this weekend, they're definitely boop. And then we caught one on a boop.
And then be like, nah, I'm just messing with y'all. No, but on a serious note, the bug hatch truly is kind of happening on the Eagle River chain for those that are going to be in the PMCC this next weekend who maybe have not been able to come up this year yet or might not even be able to pre-fish at all. If you have any previous knowledge on buggy areas, you're going to want to check those out on Saturday and Sunday during the tournament. I would assume with the incoming weather, it's going to sustain. You guys might be getting lucky with, I mean, good or bad, I don't know yet. It's, a week out. It looks like there's some rain coming in. There might be some sort of cold front happening, but it might happen after the tournament. Not sure yet. But yeah, those open water fish, it's still a muskie. They're still going to hit, any bait that you'd catch them in the weeds or on rocks or something like that. It's just usually you use slightly deeper lures, and in that case, cranks and rubber, which is why tubes have been good. And then just crankbaits, trolling or casting, really, for that matter.
Brian, if Gus was fishing in this tournament, absolutely none of this would be being said right now.
I know, I was going to say, we got to cancel this segment here. We're giving away way too much info.
What do you mean? Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. Good luck to everybody fishing in it. We might need the most luck. But I got faith in us. At the end of the day, it comes down to heart and those hours in the gym, getting your body ready. So I think we're gonna be prepared come that horn on Saturday morning.
I agree. Physically, mentally, I'm feeling ready. That's just what it's gonna come down to here. It's just gonna be a grind. You know what I mean? Know what I'm saying, Brian? Just gonna have to grind out a few fish somehow.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's two better anglers in Vilas at negative to neutral fish than these two guys right here. So let's hope they're not chomping too eagerly.
Yeah, and no two better guys that can deal with some negative and neutral attitudes either.
Absolutely.
We're gonna keep things light. PVO, positive vibes only in the boat this weekend.
Yep,
that's gonna be most of the battle. It's tournament fishing is always just a mental. It's just a mental sweat.
And if we do lose our cool on each other and we get a little negative, it's only because we want to win that bad. And that's a good thing.
Just two competitors.
Yep. Fierce.
But in all reality, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. Probably going to be a little bit of a shit show. But the nice thing is we're going to be on familiar water. So, we're hoping for the best. Brian, do we got a Vegas odds?
I was just gonna throw it over. Just gonna throw it over to Gus on his prediction. If he has kind of a guess, let's do a guess of how many fish will win it, and what do you think we'll do?
Okay. Got to check in with Vegas first here. Let me look them up.
What do they got?
All right, looking at Vegas here. I think we're looking at a solid over/under on 1.5 fish for Brian and Max.
You're going to want to take out a mortgage on your house. You're going to want to hammer that over.
Throw it all on it.
That over/under as well for sitting for the first place finishers. I'll put that at 4.5.
I feel incredibly disrespected right now. We are at 1.5 and we're 3 or 4 behind the winners. This is it's gonna be eye-opening for you guys. It's gonna be eye-opening.
I can't wait. Prove me wrong, man.
All
I
right.
can't wait.
As if we needed any more motivation. Now we got some bulletin board material.
I love to hear it. I mean, Max, what do you like to do for Brian and like a bait that he's using, and then all of a sudden he catches a fish? I know it gets him going.
Yeah, I mean, my strategy typically is just to shit on the bait over and over and over again until Brian gets angry enough and stubborn enough to not switch a lure every 15 minutes, and then eventually he catches a fish on it. I remember what was it, the really, really hideous shallow invader color that you bought that isn't so hideous because it ended up catching that really nice fish.
Was that the Fleet Farm Custom?
Might have been a Fleet Farm cuss.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think that was it the orange Fleet Farm custom or the typical black
No,
walleye?
it was the Buzz. I kept calling it the Buzz Lightyear bait.
Oh yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
you
like
hated
purple
that
and
thing.
neon and just looked so bad in the water. And I think it like glowed in the dark. And we were fishing at night. And you were like, I'm throwing on the Buzz Lightyear bait. And I think you were half asleep. And all of a sudden we just hear, oh, I think I got a fish. And just
Mhm.
ended up bagging like a nice mid to low 40s muskie on the chain.
Yeah, that was before we had a bump, so that thing was probably a 48, but we'll call it mid to low.
Probably not, but I'd definitely take that exact fish on Saturday morning or I
Oh
guess
yeah.
anytime next weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get some nice footage and hopefully we'll have a couple of celebrations to hand out.
That's another thing we got to quickly touch on. I don't want to move away yet before we discuss what our celebration dances are going to be if we do end up catching a fish.
Um, yeah, I guess it depends on the size of fish. I mean, if we land a chain giant, I mean, we might have to get wet, but we'll see. We'll see.
Hey,
If we catch a nice little
You get- you get-
if
Oh,
we catch
man.
a nice little 35er to start the morning as we've done in the past in the national championship. Yeah, probably gonna be hitting like a I don't know, something light, like a little gritty or something.
just something easy.
Something modest and humble.
Man, I'm fired up. I can't wait. I think we're gonna have an absolute laugh attack on that starting line when we're getting passed by every single boat in the line. Because that
Oh my
happened to
God.
Gus and I the first time we fished in the tournament was the spring classic, and we were boat like 90, and we were literally getting passed by boat like 130 by the time we got to our eventual spot that first morning.
Yeah, I mean it was a blessing that we got boat number one because we need all the help we can get. But it's I mean, yeah, we're gonna be in a drag race for about 10 yards and then we're just gonna be getting tossed by waves. So hopefully we'll get some footage of that. Should be a little comedy.
All right, well, let's make sure you get some good sleep this week, Brian. We'll be in touch. I'm excited to pick your brain on what you're feeling for, I guess, for the strategy and whatnot, like we discussed. So can't wait to hear that. I'm sure we'll get a good game plan dialed up. I will be out on the water sometime Friday, hopefully with you as well. We'll be kind of checking some spots, and honestly, I might do a little practice with boat with work, a little trolling motor work on Friday as well, just to see kind of how that's all laying out, and obviously getting kind of reacclimated in the 16-foot boat too. I mean, we fished out of it a little bit on Friday night, and it's just hilarious. I mean, it feels like it's half the size of Gus's boat. So yeah, it should be good. I'm looking forward to it. But I guess, moving on here, we'll talk a little bit about a few fish that we did catch this week and get on to some Q&A.
Yeah, let's touch on a few that were caught this past week. Let me pull up my phone real quick, take a look at some pictures. So in Tuesday Night League last week, Clayton and I were able to bag two nice fish. Clayton got two on a tube. Don't mean to spoil it for you, Clayton. Sorry about that, but we were casting over bait and bugs. That was the name of the game, and it seems like I was already touching on it a little bit. It looks like that's kind of gonna go forward as well for all you guys going into the tournament this weekend or anyone coming up to fish the chain. I would presume it'd be happening on a lot of area lakes as well. I haven't, like I said, I didn't get to fish a ton last week. I didn't get to venture too much. All the fish that we did catch ended up being on the chain, which is good news for you, Brian and Max. Getting some insider intel there going into the weekend. So after that Tuesday, I don't think I was able to get out at all on Wednesday. Thursday was another really busy day, work and got back. After dinner, I was able to quickly get out, make sure the 16-footer was still working for you guys. Trolled around a little bit, marked some bait. Didn't get one to go. I think that was like 40, 45 minutes. Went to another spot that I knew bait was stacked on. Put a tube on, started tossing it a little bit parallel to shore or the break line, as it would say, and popped a nice chain 40 and a quarter. So that was pretty cool. Still making sure the old 16-footer still catches fish. I think it's got a little bit of good mojo for you guys going into the tournament. We'll get it out on Friday again to make sure it really works. Probably get you guys an extra tank of gas because you'll be probably fishing about 60 spots over the weekend, I know.
I do like our game plan of not panicking if our first couple of spots we don't catch anything or move anything, and just kind of putting our head down, working the same spots from different angles, and just trusting that there's fish there, and just waiting for a feeding window. I mean, there's definitely like a handful of spots I'd like to hit on Saturday, but just got to stay patient.
Yeah, no, that's all good. You guys truthfully probably know more spots than a majority of the fishermen in this tournament on the select lakes that you guys are going to go to. It's just, I think Max will have a really good mindset and confidence level on spots where if you guys, it's pretty much the stick and stay and make them pay. Like, you guys know where fish sit. You in the old boat, you got the old waypoints. You of all the fish catches on the chain, and I mean, you just get on those spots at the right time, and that's like, bing bang boom. You guys could put a couple in the boat in like an hour. It could easily happen. You've seen some of those spots stack up. I mean, sometimes in the chain you kind of go down shoreline, sometimes pick off a fish here and there, see one or whatever, but there's definitely some spots that hold more fish than others this time of year for sure. And we'll make sure you guys are all set Friday.
Yeah, I already know it's going to be tough for me to not want to just cover a ton of water if we don't move a fish early in the morning, but just going to have to change the mental mindset, just trust that there's a fish, where we've been casting, and, try and maybe switch up some presentations and get a little lucky with the timing.
Yep, totally agree on that. Another one that we were able to get on, I think I mentioned it just a little bit earlier, is just today, Father's Day, B-Day fish that Max got on the baby DR. We were trolling. So like I said, we found some more bugs, and they're definitely castable. But I know Max, when we were in the boat, we did realize one thing, that when we marked fish on side image and we were running live scope to check the trolling bait depths and stuff like that, we were finding out when we mark one and set a waypoint and then turn around to go back to it, they sometimes disappear or move like pretty far down the ways, and those fish are on the move, and that almost tells me that they're on and off, like moving out there, and they might be moving on and off structure constantly through the day. So I think that's where you guys can pick a few off. If you guys, I mean, Max really well knows a couple of those areas where fish are gonna, like the spots where the fish are gonna go on and off. So yeah, we were kind of finding out that they're moving around quite a bit out there in the mud. They're not standing still, and they're just moving around. So that's just something to really stick with and really hone in on your electronics. I know majority of the people in that tournament are going to run live scope, and they're going to be able to see fish. I mean, it's inevitable for sure, but it's still going to happen to them. I mean, those fish disappear. I mean, I've seen it before too, having live scope running in mud. They disappear in a blink of an eye and just totally get out of sight. And then they're just tough. Then you're just running around looking for one fish that you might not even be going in the right direction for. But before we go into Q&A, one quick thing that I thought was pretty cool with the catch we just had today is that when we were running live scope, looking back at the trolling lures, I saw one pop up and start following the lure, and it was just following it for, I don't know. I didn't give it very much time because I know that sometimes when they come up after them, they just back off really quickly. So I just grabbed the rod and just rip it. And as soon as I got done ripping it, then the fish just smashed it and doubled over the rod, and you can hear the line zzz, 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 and then that was cool. So definitely that's why I think you guys can truly benefit from casting some of those areas with rubber. You can add all those triggering effects that some of the trollers can't. Okay, I think that wraps up our talk about what's going on here in the North Woods. Hopefully that gives some people some insight going into the weekend on what they're going to be looking for up here. Good luck to really everyone else in the PMCC, and I know I'll be chatting with you, Brian and Max, leading up to it a ton more, and we'll be getting the game plan going and doing a little pre-fishing there too. But yeah, just wanted to wish good luck to everyone out there going to fish the first ever PMCC that Justin over at R&M Musky Shop is setting up. And if you're listening to this and you might be coming up here to the Vilas and Oneida County area, or you live here and you're not in the PMCC, I suggest signing up. I'm unsure if there's spots available left. There might be, there might not be, so don't quote me on it. But make sure to sign up and get in on it because it's got a sweet $30,000 cash prize. First place if it's a full tournament, and I think it's going to be full, if not very, very close. So our first Q&A question comes from Pete. Pete asked me, he sent me a message on Facebook and asked, let's say you have 3 hours to fish, all things being equal, would you fish midday moon or sunset?
This one's pretty easy for me. I think half the reason why I enjoy fishing so much is to kind of get away from it all, yada, 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 that good stuff. So sunset, I guess for me is an easy answer. I guess the question's probably more pertain to where do you feel more confident you can catch a fish? I think it goes both ways for me. I mean, I feel the best at sunset. A lot of the times when we're struggling during the day and, maybe things aren't working out for us, I always feel confident that at least we can get one bite at sunset. I think that also kind of goes with obviously, like, if you've listened to the last few episodes, you do know that I love throwing top water. Prime time to do that. Feel very confident I can get a bite to at least squeeze out a bite during that time frame. And then also just lastly, it's it's my favorite time to fish. Best time to be on the water. Things typically quiet down. A lot of people go and eat dinner at a reasonable time, whereas a lot of times we're eating at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And so a lot of the times we'll have the water to ourselves. It's a great time to be out there, and it's also makes for some pretty epic pictures if you can catch a fish, right at sunset.
Yeah, my answer, I don't think this was one of the answer options, but I would say first thing in the morning and sunrise always seem to have great luck then. It seems like there's just kind of an automatic bite window in the first hour of sunrise, hour or 2 hours. But I would side with Max there and say at sunset, I think we've been skunked with the midday moon, we've been skunked at sunset, but I just feel like sunset, I always have a little bit more confidence. Then, it's kind of your last spot of the day, and you usually get a little bit more dialed in for it. And yeah, we've had a lot of success there. But depending on the lake, though, I mean, there's some lakes that have proven to be really, really good at sunset, and some lakes that haven't, and they're fairly identical lakes in terms of like size or water clarity. So I don't know what the external factor is that decides what lakes are great at sunset, but there is a weird trend.
I mean, I was thinking about maybe going against the grain of you guys, but there's truly nothing that beats a sunset muskie. I don't really know what else to say. You guys touched on everything about that. Once you get a pattern dialed through the day, even if you're not catching any fish or you probably moved a bunch through the day, if you're dialing that in, you just feel insane confidence to hook one and get one at sunset. So I'm gonna go sunset for just at 3 hours to go, all things equal. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the Instagram story questions. The first one comes from Poorly Made Musky Memes. Quick another shout out here to anybody that didn't hear their question that came in the other week. That's a great Instagram page to follow. He makes hilarious memes, all things musky fishing. Definitely recommend checking them out. What's your go-to I just caught a musky song? That's a tough one. We don't usually put music on in the boat. One thing is because my radio is broken in the boat. I'm trying to think like what we would jam on the way to.
We've yeah, it's usually on the way too. Gus, last summer I think we had like a trend for a bit.
We
And I
had a
think
little.
we
Was it
we had
Mac
played-
Miller?
Either
Was
Mac
that-
Miller or Kid Cudi, and whenever we
Kid
listened
Cudi.
to one or the other, we had caught a fish that day, and whenever we didn't catch a fish. And it was like a trend for, I don't know, a few outings at least. But yeah, I guess if I like caught a PB and was forced to put music on the boat, probably go with something chill like Money Trees by Kendrick, something of that nature.
Dude, funny thing is, you just brought up Kendrick. I have, I guess, a quick funny story. Might not have anything to do with this question, but Brian, you kind of were there for it a good bit. It kind of happened throughout college where if I was, is mainly when I was trout fishing, and it definitely worked up here when it was just kind of going out the boat. Or I think this has been going on for longer than I think. Now that I think about it, is that if I was getting skunked for like, say I was fishing for like 2 hours, 3 hours, I would just throw in Kendrick Lamar, and all of a sudden, boom, fish, boom, fish.
Something in that 808 bumping
It
that
was
gets
just,
those fish all riled up.
I know, I don't know, I don't understand it. I don't know why it worked, and I don't know why I don't do it anymore. Because I mean, there's a few times out there that, that when the going gets tough, bump Kendrick.
So yeah, for anybody in the PMCC, if you hear a loud Kendrick Lamar concert from across the lake, you'll know where we're at.
Yeah, I guess for me, like you guys said, it's not so much of the actual song post Musky, but the thing that this question made me think of is kind of a funny thing that happens quite often on our trips. Like if we get up really early, we're driving to the lake and all of us are just dead tired. We'll typically have music just blaring super loud and none of us are talking at all. Whether it is like, some heavy rap or it's like, rock. Like I know we listen to a lot of Stones, Led Zeppelin, some AC/DC on the way to the lake too. So I just always geek at that. It's hilarious when we're pulling up the launch, we just have music super loud and just none of us have said a word. And then we get out of the car, we're like, all right, we're ready to go. Let's go.
Just full volume EDM, and we're all just emotionless.
Yeah. But it does kind of wake you up, gets you going. I mean, I think you got to have some pre-fishing music. Like if you're going to the lake with, just nothing really going, I don't know. It sets the stage, gets the vibes going.
Okay, let's move on to our next question. And this this is probably going to be followed by a couple bleeps, but we're going to answer it anyways. This one comes from Jack T. He asks, what are your top 3 favorite lakes in Vilas and Oneida County?
What a bold question to ask,
That's-
Jack. I applaud you for that.
Thank you, Jack. For the listeners who don't know, he was our guest after the opener send. He was on our boat. He was my team partner that weekend in our little tournament. And he wants to know what our top 3 favorite lakes are. in
No,
Vilas and
we
Oneida
don't
County.
have to bleep it out. I'll give them away for everybody.
Okay, Brian, what do you got?
I think we can all agree that it would be Lake, LVD, and Eagle River Chain.
All right. That might not
Here
be
it is,
followed by any
everybody. Secrets
bleeps.
out.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely love that lake so much. I've had a lot of success going there every single time. Just can't keep fish out of the boat every time I go to unbelievable lake. So many fish in there.
Yeah, don't give away all the secrets. I don't want people going there.
Yeah, I think right around the corner of that lake, Max, would be one of my favorites, and that's what I really like about that lake is that there's a lot of fish in there and there's big fish. So everyone
gets
head on
skunked
over
there
to and yeah, what are my other 2? That's tough. We're gonna throw up there. I just always got a good feeling about that lake every time we go there.
I moved a 60-inch out there, so that's
That's
a great
right.
lake.
Brian, I think he's got that on. That's number 4 for Brian.
Yeah.
I don't know. Last one, probably.
Yep.
Just a solid. It's just a solid lake. You can always find a bite there. Just action water. We've moved a couple big fish. We've caught some sizable fish there, but I just like the layout. Can't beat it.
You cannot forget. You can't leave out another great lake for everybody in the area.
Crazy that you're just giving the listeners all these lakes. Wow, you guys are lucky out there. Jack, you asked a great question there. Hopefully that helps everyone. All right, let's move on to the next question. And this comes from Eric W on Instagram. He asked, what's the longest dry spell you've been through / most recent memorable one? And how did you break it? Wow. That's what this one hits to home, because if people out there say that they've never had a dry spell, they're lying, because everyone goes through them.
Mine came last fall, actually. That's definitely my most memorable one. We had an awesome August, and moving into the fall, which is my favorite time of year to musky fish, I was, obviously very excited. I had a few good weekends pinned to come up. Gus and I were fishing in the Paul's Pro-Am tournament as well in September. So yeah, I was getting geared up for the fall, ready to go. Like I said, we just came off of a good August, so the confidence was high, and we ended up taking a few different trips during September. Had some work things come up, and so wasn't able to fish as much as I would have hoped. But I do remember we blanked on a weekend where we only got out a few different times early September. I came up for Paul's Pro-Am, pre-fishing, whole tournament, didn't catch a fish. And then I took a whole week of work off the first weekend in October last year. And it was, if you guys remember, it was during that really bad warming trend during October, that first week of October. We fished extremely hard during the weekdays and ended up I don't think I caught a single fish. I might have caught one under 30-inch muskie right at the end of the trip the last day, if that would consider really breaking it. But it was multiple weekend trips without catching a fish from end of August. And my fall was terrible. I ended up seeing a lot of really good fish get caught in the boat, which, always helps, but it really didn't break for me until this spring when I got that big pre-spawn fish. So yeah, that really showed me, the true bottom of the barrel when it comes to musky fishing. Things can go south quickly sometimes, and days can kind of start to compile, and next thing you know, you haven't caught a fish in a few months. So it's real, it happens, and that's what makes I guess the really good nights or the really memorable catches that much more special.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna piggyback on Max there. I myself had a little bit of a dry spell going there in last September. That was not a great month to us at all. And like Max said, we did have a family vacation in there, which I don't want to use any excuses, but I think that was right around the time of some pretty awesome weather kicking into end of September that we kind of got to miss, because I know right when we got back, that dry spell was ended with a 2 mid-40s first 2 suckerfish day of the season. That was incredible. That kind of ended it. That whole September, I was just really, really struggling to convert on fish. We were seeing plenty. I know a few friends of mine in the boat that were fishing with, we were missing fish that were, smacking the bait, but we just weren't getting hooks into them. And it was tough. It just kept grinding and knew it would turn around at some point. And it definitely did. Definitely did. Same with me, really. That last fall, that was just kind of a weird time, really.
Yeah, a quick story to kind of encapsulate my dry spell. When we were fishing in that Paul's Pro-Am tournament, like I said, we didn't catch a fish pre-fishing. Our first day, we saw plenty of fish, but like Gus said, we'd get them into the 8. They were non-committal. They were nipping at the back of baits, stuff like that. But I think the one that really broke me was Sunday, the second day of the tournament. With I think an hour left to go. At this point, our minds are completely out of it. That day was terrible. We didn't see a single fish the entire day. And like I said, with about an hour to go, I was throwing double 10s, and I was just like, all right, if a fish hits this, at least I think I can keep it pinned. We heard that they were moving on blades that day. And I was probably staring at the shoreline or something, not paying much attention. And this is typically how it happens. But I had like a mid 40s chain fish just swipe right at my feet and just completely missed the double 10. I don't know if it was a blind fish or what, but that just kind of was just broke the back a little bit after being in the middle of a dry spell, having something like that happen. And I had a handful of other things of that nature kind of going on that month and into October, but that one just kind of stuck out for me. Not only was it in a tournament, but it would have been nice fish to kind of break that dry spell. Just kind of seeing it happen right at your feet was just tough. It was just a tough scene.
Yeah, dry spells they're inevitable. You just gotta stick with your game. Don't try too many new things. I mean, it's always good to branch out, but just stick to your game. Use the lures that work and catch fish that you like to work, and just get out of that slump. And then once you're out of that slump and you're onto a good bite and you're all dialed up, then you can start trying new things, new lakes, new lures, new techniques. But yeah, the dry spells are tough. They're tough to get through, but in the end, it just really is what makes catching a muskie that much sweeter, no matter the size. All right, our next question from Instagram comes from user Fluff to Tough Running. I know he sent a question the other week. Fluff asks, do you change your side imaging settings from lake to lake? Also, can you share your settings? Thanks. All right. I'm not sure if you know this, Fluff, but I do run Garmin. I know not everybody runs that. For the most part, I don't change my settings around too much unless I drop into a lake and I see some pretty heavy distortions or my original settings are getting screwed up. And the quick example of that is when I went from fishing all these Vilas and Ida County area lakes and then going down to the Madison chain on Wabisa and Monona. My side image just like completely took a shit, and I thought I had to get like a new transducer sent like right before the tournament. I was kind of panicking, and I just didn't mess around with it enough, and I was trying to ask people questions before, putting it into action myself, and all I had to do was just change around the frequency. I think I was running on the highest chirp, like 1070, and then I think I just changed it down to 455, and that really cleared the image up quite a bit, and everything went back to normal. And honestly, now that I'm back up north here, I'm gonna keep running 455 because that is keeping a super clear image. I'm still getting a lot of range. I'm trying to think now with side image, I typically run it shorter left to right when I'm trolling and longer when I'm casting. When I'm casting, I sometimes put it out to 100 each side, but I usually keep it in that 85 to 90 range. And then trolling, I usually do anywhere from 70 to 80 feet left and right. I usually keep it that shorter distance while trolling because you're just kind of you're moving faster, so fish aren't going to mark as large, and you're kind of covering a tighter spread anyways. I mean, I usually just run 2 down rods if 2 people are in the boat, 1 down rod if it's just myself, and I would run a planer board if there's a third, but I'd keep that planer board pretty close to the boat, so there's really no reason to like scan super far while you're trolling at 3 to 4 miles an hour or something like that, and you just kind of lose the image of the fish if you're trying to mark them while trolling. Fluff, also on the settings, I can share them quick here. To be honest, I've just found them off of YouTube. YouTube was super helpful. I'm not gonna talk on here like I'm some absolute genie. Like I know my electronics super well, but for the most part, the settings wise, I just use a lot of stuff that I found on YouTube and really just tweak it from there until it kind of works for myself. And I don't know if you have Garmin, but I usually run it around that like 53 to 57 ish contrast, and then the brightness I'll kind of flip back and forth from auto medium and auto high depending on how much like kickback or feedback I'm getting from the lake that I'm at. I think the scroll speed comes auto. I think that's how it's defaulted, and I do move it to I think 5 or 6 it is, so that even if I'm spot locked or standing still, it's going to continue to go. And this is actually something that I found very beneficial, actually smallmouth fishing. I don't mean to bring up that at all, but when I'd spot lock on some flats, we'd watch schools swim by the boat, and even though the boat was like standing still and the side image pretty much just looked like nothing on the left and right, randomly you just see like 6 dashes with their following shadows on the other side, and you're like, oh well, there's some smallmouth that just did a little drive-by by the boat, and now we know to cast a little bit back because you figured that they're usually going upwind. But hopefully that helps. I don't really have too much more on the settings. I think I just use the amber color scheme. It's probably one of the most basic. I know some people like to use the midnight emerald green, something like that. I don't remember what it's called, but that's what I sometimes run on my down imaging. Gives me a pretty clear image. But other than that, I would highly suggest just going down to YouTube. They have awesome tutorials that goes through all the settings, and they will explain each and every one, what you're doing if you're dialing it up or down. So definitely suggest that. Okay, the last 2 questions actually kind of go hand in hand, and I'm just gonna quickly rifle through them. I know Brian and Max don't do it as much. I know Max does like to do it with me, but these both refer to trolling, and this is all very relevant for anyone going out there and fishing this weekend or now or pretty much in the next couple of weeks as these bug hatches start to kind of reach their maximum. So the first one about trolling comes from Instagram user Gus Swenson, and he asks, what are you running for your trolling setups? For me, pretty much just run what I'm going to run sucker fishing, and that's an 8-foot heavy rod. They are moderate action rods so that they have a little more backbone to them. That like a faster tip, it would just be bending from the tip. Where with the moderate action, it's like the whole rod is folding, so that when you're trolling super fast with a big bait and you got it jammed in the water as a down rod, it can take all that, beating as you're going quickly through the water. And then on top of that, a fish hitting, or, the other unfortunate happenings is snagging a crib or brush pile or rock or something. Is that so that rod doesn't just, I feel like if you had a really, really, really fast tip and you snagged a crib going really fast, it could just snap from the tip. Whereas if you have the moderate action, the whole rod is folding. So that's what I'm running for rods. I think you can just get a rod anywhere. That it does not have to be fancy, as long as it's around 8.5, I'd say. I mean, you could go with a 9-foot too, no problem. As long as it's a heavy and it's a moderate action, I think you're definitely going to be able to get the job done and kind of use it just as a two-way setup of a sucker rod and a trolling setup. All right, our last question, and this one's also about trolling. This one comes from Instagram user Luke. He asks, what are your favorite trolling baits for northern Wisconsin? Ooh, this is a good question. For me, I just, there's a few that I know work really well, and I'm just going to continue. I want to keep branching out as much as possible, but I know that there's just a few that keep working day in, day out, spring, summer, fall. And those are usually baits, honestly, with rattles in them, because I do fish quite a bit of stained water. And the top three are going to be the 22 short, the baby depth raider, and probably a Jake, 8 or 10-inch Jake. Especially the 10-inch Jake when you're trolling around a Cisco lake. That one can be deadly in the fall. Or even, one thing that I do want to really try the larger Jake is to kind of speed troll it a little bit more in the summer at sometimes when, say, like a weed bite isn't really going super well, and you want to just kind of quickly get a bait down deep and burn it fast, and it being a large bait. So that's definitely something that I want to try this year. But yeah, I think those are probably my favorite trolling baits. I mean, I have some more that I've caught fish on, but honestly, day in, day out, if one of those three is not on my rod, then it's probably just a complete experimental day, because those are some of the baits that I have the absolute most confidence getting bit. All right, I think that wraps up our podcast for the week, and I think that was a pretty good one. Had some really, really good questions from the listeners out there. Thank you so much for sending them in. And if we do need some more questions in another week, or if your question wasn't answered, like I said, just shoot me a message, and be sure to look out on Instagram stories for sure. Sometimes Facebook, if we're looking for some more questions on a post of mine that I'll be asking you guys, the listeners, to send us in some questions. And on top of that, I just wish everyone the best of luck in the PMCC, and anybody else going out fishing this weekend. I think it's going to be a really good weekend of fishing. I mean, this is truly like some of the best fishing, in my opinion, of the year. I didn't want to I was trying to tiptoe around it, really. I sometimes don't always really like the early June bite. It can be really difficult. The fish can be very, very scattered. And I've found that picking lakes can be very, very picky with these fish. But this is now truly the time of year where your small lakes are getting fully developed. Your medium to large lakes are just right around the corner, and these fish are going to start stacking up on all your like super predictable spots and your weed flats and weed points, and you're definitely going to be looking for like, big wind spots, or where there's tons of bait loaded up on those weed edges. And it's just, the water's going to get warmer, in a good way. Obviously not too warm. Hopefully it doesn't get too warm this year, but in a good way, that water is going to get warm and they're going to fire up these fish to get their metabolism going, and they're just going to be feeding a lot more heavily throughout the day. And then this is where finally you get those bite windows that aren't super tight. So everyone hang in there. I think we got some really good fishing ahead of us. So before we sign off, I'm going to quick give out my socials for any of the listeners interested on following my adventures. You can keep following along Max and I in the PMTT. I'm sure Max and Brian are going to be posting about the PMCC this weekend, and just going forward with now starting the much more heavy guide season that's upon me, and be getting a bunch of pictures out for you guys, and hopefully a bunch of smiling faces of some first time musky catchers. So really looking forward to it. So my Instagram is at Suggs Fishing. Facebook is also going to be Suggs Fishing Guide Service. You can add me as a friend there, Gus Manty. Also feel free to reach me at my cell phone number, which is 920-264-3816. You can give me a message, a call, leave me a voicemail. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And also be sure to check out my website, and that is www.suggsfishing.com. That's got a bunch of good fish pictures in there as well. If you don't have an Instagram or Facebook, you can check out my rates. You can find my contact info on there. I know you're already listening to this, but I got my podcast going out on there as well. And from there, you can just give me a message on availability this year, and hopefully I can get you out in the boat and get you on some fish. So,
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in this week. Really looking forward, Brian, to fishing that PMCC tournament with you. I think it's a win if we can make it out of the tournament. Still friends, still alive, and hopefully catch a few fish in the meantime. So yeah, it should be a good time. Night, everyone. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, and I think tonight deserves a quick sign off from you, Brian.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been waiting for this week since it was announced by Justin earlier this year. It is the PMCC. It is upon us. I will see all you clowns on the podium come Sunday afternoon. Unfortunately, first place has already been decided, and we got the secret ticket this weekend. Good luck to everybody. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you Sunday with a big old check.